Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to City Skylines 2 and welcome back to Columbia County. I hope you're having a good one because I am so excited to be back. There's not really too much to talk about in terms of changes between this episode and the last one. So with all of that out of the way, let's talk about what we're going to be doing today. And right off the rip, I mentioned in the last episode that we were going to be coming out here and we were going to be building some service facilities for the city as a whole. Now, the reason I want to do this is because, number one, all of my parks, including this soccer field and including this little guy down here, are at 0% maintenance. Now, maintenance is important because it's integral to keeping parks, plazas, and other recreation locations in good condition. I'm assuming it's just essentially how effective they are. And I mean, attractiveness is currently 0 because of the lack of maintenance. I also didn't realize that forest proximity and terrain height could impact the attractiveness of a building. I genuinely didn't know that. That's news to me, and my headset just fell off as well. Let me put that back on. I'm assuming it's a similar thing here. Building efficiency plus 13, forest proximity plus 10, terrain height plus 2. Okay. Basically, yeah, maintenance determines the attractiveness. So we need to do something about that. And I'm also going to use this opportunity to get some road maintenance into the city as well. So right off the jump, what I'm going to do is go in here and I'm going to take out a bunch of trees. Now, I know I placed a bunch of these myself in the last episode. These ones out here I didn't, but these ones down by the road I did. It's fine. We can put those back in here. It's by no means the end of the world. And I'm probably not going to spend too long detailing this space because I do have a detail-oriented project in mind for later in this episode, which is a little bit of a change of plan when compared to what I was thinking of doing today. But I had a little bit of a look at a certain part of the map that I'm really excited to build on, so I kind of want to do that, and so I'm kind of gonna do that. And so for now, I'm just gonna put this road right here, and what I'm also gonna do is put a little path right across here, and I'm gonna put this around this entire space. Now, I'm not doing this for aesthetic purposes. Well, I am doing this for aesthetic purposes, but I'm doing it for a specific aesthetic purpose, which is that I can go in here, grab my surfaces, and just sort of move this to be at the edge of that path. And I think that's going to be a bit of a better shout for kind of laying this space out. So we'll go for here. We'll add another one to right there. We'll do exactly the same thing up at this end of things for this corner as well. And I just think it's going to give me a little bit of a better footprint for this entire space. It is a nice little square area in the middle that I can work with. And so what I can do is just take that out, and there we go. It's just a little bit neater, and that's sort of what I'm looking for. I wanted something a little bit neater. Now, in terms of the service buildings, I've already mentioned what we're doing, so it's not really going to be any surprise. It is going to be road maintenance, which is going to live, I want to say right down here at the end of this road is where road maintenance is going to live, right about there. I can extend these little surfaces out to make it look better. And does this thing have any upgrades? It absolutely does. We've got the extra garage, which is more space for a larger fleet of road maintenance vehicles. We have how many by default? We have 10. This would give us 5 more. And it's that kind of upgrade. Okay, we can get this later on if we need it. I don't think we're going to need it right now. And I'm also realizing this terrain is not level. So before I get too carried away, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a little node just right here so I can take this road out, and we're just going to very, very quickly flatten this whole thing down to the same height as this building. I don't need to do it. It's not really essential, but it's just going to make my life a little bit easier if we have this all nice and level from the jump, and we can smooth this part out. We'll smooth out the edges, and then we'll just bring that road straight back through there, right up to about that spot there. And that's perfect. I don't think anyone would be any the wiser that any terrain editing was done there if I hadn't said that I'd done it. And then the second building I'm going to put in here is obviously going to be the park maintenance depot. And the way I'm sort of thinking of doing this is putting some parking in front of it. Not that that's necessarily needed by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it would be kind of interesting to have a little bit of parking in front of this guy. So I'm going to put the building right there, and I'm going to extend a road up this way as well. And then I'm thinking I'm kind of going to flip this around so it's actually facing that way, because I think if we put this on here, it just looks a little bit more a little bit more industrial. And this thing, by the way, is going to increase the availability of supplies, allowing the maintenance vehicles to work for longer. That actually is pretty useful to have. And this gives us more space for vehicles. We have 10 vehicles by default. Do we need 15? I really don't know that we do, but this is kind of a cool addition to the building. So I'm going to do it. It doesn't cost us that much more per month, so I think we're going to do it just so I can use this space in here as parking and kind of justify my decision to do parking in here when we really don't need it. But it does sort of bring the space together, you have to admit. It does kind of tie it all together. So I'm willing to do the parking. I'm absolutely willing to do the parking. I'm also thinking it might be a good idea to do a little something like this on either side of the parking, and then maybe do the same thing on certain sections of the road that I built as well, just so it's all really nicely enclosed. I don't know if I need to do it down here. I don't know if it makes too much sense to do it down here, but this is kind of how I've done the fences around other facilities that we have going on. So that kind of gives us a little bit of a fence around the parking, which I just think looks better, and it saves on me having to use so many props to make that happen. I'm also thinking we probably want to go in and get some wide sidewalks for this entire thing, so that people are actually going to be using the parking facilities as opposed to, well, not using them. And then before this can all be up and running properly, we do need to bring some power lines out here, and I'm just going to keep using these little power poles because I think it's going to look absolutely fantastic on a country road right here. So we'll bring them right out like this, right up to about here, and we'll go that little bit further, maybe turning off different bits of snapping here so I can get this to work properly. So right to about there should give us a power connection for this entire place, which it absolutely has, meaning the last thing we have to do is get a water and sewage connection, which is going to be much simpler because I'm really not going to be following the roads all the way into the industrial space. I'm just going to bring this right down underneath this road to about that spot. We're going to just follow underneath the bridge, assuming it doesn't mess with the terrain too much, which I don't think it will. But we'll bring it right down to about there. And that should mean that these guys are 100% up and running, which is beautiful. I also changed this road out to be a highway road because I figured I might as well. I don't think there's going to be enough traffic to need asymmetrical roads and roundabouts and traffic control devices. I think this will be totally fine. Although I do know that these road maintenance vehicles have a nasty tendency to slow down traffic something fierce. So we'll see how that goes. I'm also thinking I want to copy that shade of yellow and see if I can apply it to this building. I might deeply, ooh. You know, I actually don't hate that. I really don't. I'm kind of surprised that I don't hate that, but it's not so bad. I mean, it kind of looks like a taxi depot, but that's fair enough. And then I'm assuming this is like this is that part of the building. Okay. Make that kind of darker, and then we'll copy that. We'll paste it there. That seems pretty good to me. I'm actually kind of okay with that. I'm kind of wondering, can I do the same thing over here? Maybe make that part of the building yellow. Ooh. Oh, that might have been a mistake. Okay, hold on a minute. So the green part, I'm assuming is that. Yeah, that checks out. And then this part is the roof. Okay. So this entire building being yellow is not going to be an option. We'll make that a little bit darker, and I think that's okay. The yellow around the ridges here, I don't know that I love that. So I'm going to make it, that's not the ridges. Oh boy, hold on. Copy, paste. And then you're the ridges. Yeah. Let's make that kind of dark as well, I suppose. And then this guy, can this extension, I don't know if it can have different colors or not. That's kind of my problem. Can I, so select you, there's what I'm looking for. Okay. So that part is going to be yellow. And then I'm guessing this lower part is all of that. Yeah. So I could make that darker, but then it doesn't match the main building, but it does kind of match the other building. Do I like that? I'm kind of okay with that. I think I'm going to deal with that. I think that's okay. I would like to copy that color set and I would like to just paste it to this guy. And you know, I'm okay with that. I'm actually kind of okay with that. It's a little bit much. The red brick on this guy is a little bit much as well, but I think that looks all right. And then as a final touch, I just want to come in here and start to extend some of these surfaces so they go right up to the road there. Over on this side, it's going to be kind of a similar story. You're going to go right up to the road there. Over on this side, exactly the same thing. You're going right up to the road there. And down this way, I figure you're going to go right up to the road as well. I think that kind of makes sense. So bring this right out, bring it into this space as well. So it goes right around there. And I think that's about all we need to do with this. I think maybe I could extend this grass surface to take up a bunch more of that space. I don't think that'll be the worst thing in the world. Or I could just extend this little grass surface to go around everything and get rid of the manicured grass, because the manicured grass might be a little bit much out here. Alternatively, I go the complete opposite direction and I just add some nodes to a few little bits of this space and start bringing the farms down a little bit closer, which now that I think about it might be the right call here, just to sort of give us a little bit less space to work with, because otherwise this is just going to be swamped with trees as per usual. So I think doing this might be the right call. And that's actually giving me a bit of an idea for what I could do in this little space we have on the left. I might actually just put a functional farm in there, because I'm sure if we go and have a look in here, number one, we're losing a lot of money. We'll talk about that in a second. If we look at production, we have a little bit of demand for livestock. So we could do a teeny tiny little livestock farm in here. I would probably have to swap out this road for, well, an actual road, but that's easy enough to do. And then a livestock farm could just live right here, or it could live there. But I think that's a weird spot for it. And honestly, looking at this, I think this is just a weird spot for a livestock farm in general. So you know what? Let me just bring this surface down here. We'll put some trees around this and we'll call it a day. Okay, I've got to be honest, I couldn't help myself. I decided to go in here and add some fences around this to separate the farm from the facility, and then I extended a nice clean grass surface throughout the entire thing as well. And I actually love how this has turned out. It looks exactly how I wanted it to. It's a beautiful little facility that's going to be doing so much for Blackwater and Columbia County. We'll probably end up building another something like this somewhere else once we expand out into the rest of the county. But this right here is, I think, a pretty solid little addition, even if it's in kind of a weird spot, but I like it a lot. I hope you do as well. And so that brings us to the next thing that I want to deal with today. And that actually has something to do with the economy, because I can't help but notice we're spending $235,000 on imported electricity. And the reason we're doing that is because we are generating 22.8, not 220 anything, 22.8 megawatts of electricity while consuming 23.55 megawatts of electricity. So we're kind of faced with a choice, because we only have the one power plant. It's right down here and it generates 22.8 or 228 if we prefer. It's not enough. So what do? We can extend it. Well, we can't extend it. We could build another one. We could build a replacement. We could build something better. And yeah, that's going to be the plan eventually, but not today. So this is going to be another example of spending money to make money. Essentially, if I go into my electricity service, I can go to the budget and say, you know, right now we're spending what, 255,000. If I give this an extra 10%, maybe an extra, say 14%, it's now 265,000. But if we have a look at our electricity, we're now producing 25.2, consuming 23.5, meaning that in terms of the economy, we shouldn't, for very much longer anyway, be spending all this money on imported electricity. This $235,602 any second now should start to drop off a little bit, and we should start to see, there we go, 29,000 being spent on that particular service trade, and eventually that is going to go away as well. Now, that hasn't solved all of my problems, although we are making money again. It's a temporary solution, because eventually we are going to need to come in here and replace this power plant. And, well, I say replace it. I did all that decal work around it. We're probably never going to replace this. It is probably going to be here forever. We'll just have to build maybe a dedicated electricity facility out in the world somewhere. Again, that's not a today thing, but I did want to try and deal with that little bit of a dip in the economy. Now, what I'm thinking for today, or at least for the rest of today, is something to do with this space. I know it's a bit of a departure from what I said we'd be doing, because I said we'd fill in this space, but I've kind of dabbled with this space a little bit, and I really don't know what to do with it yet. So I want to come in here and I want to start playing around with some slightly different buildings compared to what we've done before. And it's going to involve taking out all of these trees. Now, taking these out is going to be tricky because there's a lot of trees on the other side of this road that I placed myself that I would really like to stay in place. So as best I can, let's clear out the trees that I don't want. And then I want to come through here and start building a little road that just goes alongside the river here in some way, shape, or form. I'm not 100% sure what exactly that's going to be, but my thinking was we would have a road that sort of runs parallel to this little section of water, so something like this. And then I was going to try and do one up here that does the same thing, but that would kind of fundamentally change this curve of the river. So we might have to deal with a couple of little different sections here. This whole bit in the middle is going to change to something like this, most likely, because what I'm wanting to do here is build some medium-ish buildings, some slightly nicer apartment-looking things is kind of what I'm thinking. So let me make sure that this terrain isn't flat. That's slightly troublesome, but I can make it work. I'll go for a slightly smaller brush. And is this a different height to that part down there? It absolutely is. Do I want to bring that up or do I want to bring this down? That's the real question. I actually don't know. I think a little bit of both. I think bringing this all up to this height is going to be a good shout so that we don't have to deal with any potential flooding. So bringing this all up to about here, and I'm going to straighten out this edge just a little bit because I do want a road that runs along that, but then we can obviously curve it around here and that should be fine. So this can all be nicely flattened up to about there, and that gives me a nice area to work with. And then this side is the tricky part. That's the really tricky part. In fact, I think we're just going to bring this sort of flattened terrain all the way down here and then bring this little straightened edge right out to about there as well. We'll have to do some work with this to make it work a little bit better for the roads. But on this side, I think we bring it down. I think we bring it down a little bit. I can do like a key wall alongside that existing road and everything should be fine. But we're going to bring this terrain right down to about there. And that is going to give me a really, really nice canvas for what I want to do in here, which is essentially apartment buildings, not super tall apartment buildings, not high density apartment buildings, but little medium kind of density apartment things down here on the water in a dedicated neighborhood that looks sort of deliberately like kind of a new development. That's sort of my thinking here. So let's just flatten this terrain the entire way down to here. Let's just do something like this the entire way up to there. And then I think I need to go in here with either a road or I need to go in here with some pedestrian paths, and I do need zoning first. So let's do a little section of road right here. We'll go from here. That's a highway. That's not what I'm looking for. We'll go from, I want to say here is kind of what I'm thinking. This does need to have a key wall alongside it right away though. So this is going to go basically right there is kind of my thinking. I might go a little bit further into the water just to give myself a little bit more space, but essentially we're going to bring this guy right back. We're going to go 240 meters, maybe 200 and I don't know, 64, 72, 80. We'll go 280 meters right to about there. And that seems pretty solid. What I would like to do is then bring this road down. Maybe we'll do the usual 88 meters. That seems a little big though, so let's maybe not do that. Let's do 56 meters and then bring this thing straight back down through here, straight down to the same length as the other side, which I think that is. And that's actually kind of a little bit much. That's not quite the angle I'm looking for. I think the whole thing needs shuffled over a little bit. Okay, so I've gotten a little bit away from my original plan here. I was just going to put some buildings along this bit of water, but that's really not going to work out all that well. So I'm kind of changing the plan ever so slightly. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to come in here and I'd like to start putting some little sections of key wall along here so that we can have buildings on this road and not this road up here. Which means I'm going to have to do the same thing to every little stretch of road along here, which is going to be kind of fun to figure out because I'm really not too sure this is going to do exactly what I'm looking for, but I'm going to really hope for the best. So we'll do this and we'll do the same thing in here as well. We'll get ourselves a little section of key wall right there, which is unfortunately enabling zoning across this entire space, but I suppose that's fair enough. I guess it kind of works. It gives us this little lower part down here, which I can kind of work with. This part I think is, for the life of me, I don't know. I don't know what this is supposed to be. I think this is a 2-lane road. It is going to get its crossings back, which I don't love, but I can probably just go in and turn all of those off in just a moment. But that does give me this little lower section here to play with, and that's kind of what I want. I might do the same thing here as well. Just sort of lower or do that right there to make this work and then go in and we can kind of just flatten this terrain right down now, which is going to give me a really nice base to build from, which is what I'm looking for. So we'll go right along here. We can flatten all of this out. This part's probably still going to be a park, but it'll be an extension of this neighborhood rather than just coming straight off of the welfare office. It'll still come off of the welfare office. It's just, it'll be built as a part of this project, I think. Anyway, what I think I'm also going to do is take out a decent chunk of this water just for the time being. It is going to come back. I want to have that water in here, but just for now, I want to go in here and I want to start putting in my buildings, and I want this to look a very kind of particular way. And I think the way I'm going to do that is maybe by using some European either mixed use or medium density. I don't really know what way to go about this. I haven't fully decided on what style I want to go for yet, but I'm kind of thinking European really might be the easiest one. So let's try a couple of little European buildings right here. We can kind of dot them around a little bit. We'll do a slightly bigger one in the corner. I don't know how well that's going to go though. Maybe we don't do the slightly bigger one there. In fact, we're not going to do the slightly bigger one there. We're just going to keep doing the same little 3x3 thing because I think that's going to make my life easier. And I'm going to go 3x3 very deliberately, unless I can go wider, which apparently I cannot. Can I get a 6 across? I can get a 4. All right, let's do a little 4x3 right there. We'll do a little 4x3 right here as well. That was not measured properly. And we'll do a little 4x3 and a little 4x3. And we'll just kind of let those build out and that should be fine. On this side, we're going to do exactly the same thing, essentially. Can I get like a nice little 4x3 in the middle there? I absolutely can. Or I could do a 3 and a 3, which I think might look better. In here, we'll do a... Is there a 5x3? No. All right, so we're not going to do that. We'll just do a little 4x3 there. That should be all right. On this side, is that room in the middle for 3? I think we can do a 3 and a 3 right there. We can do a 4 and a 4 right there. And on this side, we could do... I think we might just do a 4 and a 4 across from each other there, and that should be all right. So that's just going to give us a bunch of these guys. A bunch of these kind of nicer looking apartment buildings, very standalone. And it's again, my design here is very deliberate. I'm being very particular with where I put things, because what I want to try and do is go in here with some pedestrian paths. And I want to just turn off all my key walls for a second. I want to go in here with pedestrian paths and maybe... Well, if I have the key wall on the right side, is that going to be where I want it? It is. Basically, you can probably figure out where I'm going with this. I want to have pedestrian paths that go around these buildings, and then I want to turn those pedestrian paths into key walls so that I can have the water come in here, because I think that might be kind of cool to have the water kind of coming up and around the buildings. Now, whether or not that's really going to work, I don't know yet. I haven't really tested it. So this is kind of a little bit of a leap of faith right now to see if this will work. I'm also going to take these guys out because they're sort of in an awkward spot. And then down here, I'm kind of wondering, can I just go from here, turn on guidelines, turn off grid snapping, and somehow, some way get this to snap together? Is that going to be an option? I'm really hoping it is. Let me turn off basically everything other than guidelines and angles. Does that work? Not really. That's unfortunate. I was really hoping it would work without interfering too much with the existing buildings. So I'm going to take these guys out. We'll maybe do something a bit smaller in there. I'm going to take these guys out, and we're just going to try to curve this all together as best we can. So from there to there should be pretty good. And that'll give us a nice little channel for what's essentially going to be a canal. That's kind of what we're building here, is just a bunch of canals. Okay, so I've spent the past hour trying to put this together, and I know it doesn't look like much, but this has once again been one of those projects where halfway through this, I was thinking, oh God, this is terrible. I'm gonna have to start everything again. But it's getting somewhere now. Again, it's gotten a little bit off track of, from where we started, but it's getting somewhere, and I'm hoping that putting the water back in here is going to sort of bring it all together again, because it's definitely gotten a little bit lost along the way here, but we're going to see what happens once I start taking out the terrain and just pushing everything back. And I'm really just hoping for the best on this one. I'm not going to lie. I'm really just hoping for the best. We'll just keep pushing this terrain back along the banks of the river to start with. And then what I need to do is just go through here, maybe with a slightly smaller brush, just so I can be a little bit more precise. And we're just going to slowly chop away at all of this terrain. It is going to be a little bit nasty in a couple of different places, but that's totally fine. I can hopefully make that work, and I'm hoping that the water is going to flow in here. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause while I do this so that I can watch the water hopefully flow through here, and then see if we're going to need any water sources for this entire thing. I'm also going to be able to get a good look at just how nasty the terrain is going to be around the edges of these paths, because they're really not, I don't think they're quite thick enough for me to get away with what I'm trying to do here, but I do think I can potentially cover some of those imperfections with some surfaces, both a combination of riverbed surfaces and also grass surfaces that this entire area is likely going to be covered in. It's really going to need a lot of attention to really bring this together, but so far so good in terms of getting the terrain in here. I mean, that's a little bit nasty and some of this is a little bit nasty, but it seems okay. It seems like we're going to have a couple of little weird spots where the buildings are, but I'm kind of okay with that. I'm also thinking, just while I'm doing this, I think it's probably time to go through and just start putting a couple of little nodes on this texture that goes around this place, because it's really not something I'm too interested in keeping, and it's going to be overlapping with some surfaces that I'm going to put in here anyway. So I think it's probably for the best to really just push that back and find the, where's the other node that I'm missing here? It's a little, no, is that it? Okay, that is it. Okay, so that's gotten rid of that texture, which is fine. Gives me a bit of a better look at what I'm dealing with, and it also gives me an opportunity to go in here and say, let's do riverbed wet dark for this, and we'll just go through very quickly. We'll follow the paths, and then we just let the water flow in here and sincerely hope for the best on this particular one. It is, I think this is the first time I've really seen the water flowing on this map. It's usually pretty still, but it looks like it's gonna get in there. It is a little bit nasty still in a few places, but I'm fairly sure I can tidy this up a little just by pushing it back like so, and that's definitely helped. We're still gonna have, we're gonna have a few spots where the terrain does this, but I think for the most part, I should be able to tidy up a really, really good chunk of this. And you know, I've got to say, the grass surface in here really didn't hide things as much as I was hoping it would. Now, I might go around a few spots and just add a retaining wall like this, because I do think it helps, especially when you kind of get an angle like this. But I suppose the alternative to doing retaining walls would be maybe to just go in here with some bushes. Now, I'm not going to get to the whole detailing aspect of this just yet. I don't think we're at that point of the video, but I am curious. Ooh, no, they want to sink into the ground. That's really unfortunate. Okay, that is going to make things challenging. That's going to make things really challenging. We might have to hide some crimes in here with some slightly larger trees, but this is kind of what I'm looking for this space. It's obviously something very different to what we've done before, but it's supposed to be apartment buildings. It's supposed to be something very distinctly different to what was in here before. So I'm kind of okay with this layout. I'm also thinking I'm going to move these guys a little bit closer together, because I think that's going to be a better idea. So that's North American. I want the European buildings right there. We'll do something like this. We'll leave a little bit of a gap down there, and that just gives us even spacing on pretty much all of them. It's not as many buildings as I was hoping for, but I'm also kind of okay with that. And I'm also thinking, let me go in here, make this roof a little bit darker. And then what is this color going to be? That's our balconies. Okay. Do I want those to be bright white? I kind of do. And then the rest of the building, I'm going to go for sort of a, I like that color. I think that kind of works. So I want to copy this, and I sort of want to paste it to all of the rest of these buildings, because this as a development would likely be put together by a single company, I would imagine. So the buildings all kind of being the same, I feel kind of makes sense. I think it just sort of makes sense that they would be pretty much identical buildings. I don't know that these views are necessarily to die for, but I think they're probably fine. And I think we can probably make that work. I'm also probably going to throw some parking in here, although they do have roadside parking. And I think a bunch of parks will really bring this whole space together. I was also kind of thinking that up here could probably do with a little something something. I'm not too sure if I want to do these style of buildings or if I maybe want to go in and play around with the idea of EU mixed housing. I think we can take a little bit of a look and see what it would look like in here to do a little bit of EU mixed housing. I think this might not be the best idea. I'm not really too sure that it's going to look exactly how I'd want it to, but I'm kind of willing to give it a shot. I'm kind of willing to see how it turns out and whether or not this is a set of buildings. They are quite large as well. Yeah, these really might not be what we're looking for. Down at this end of things, I'm sort of thinking I'm going to throw in a little bit of, honestly, row houses might be the way to go. We could do EU row houses in here just to sort of keep that theme going through. So maybe just a little set of row houses across here would be a bit of a shout. We'll build them and see what it looks like. We'll get rid of this little small one as well. So we'll have a look at the mixed use buildings. We'll have a look at the row houses. I'm thinking row houses are going to be the safer bet. I really do think row houses will be the call for this, but I want to get a look at it. I want to see how it turns out. I want to see what it looks like. And honestly, I think the answer here is pretty clear. I think it's going to be the row houses. They kind of allow, there's not really a view necessarily with the row houses there, but I think this little bit of density is just a little bit too much away from the city center or the town center or whatever we're calling that area over there. So these guys are all going to go away. And I think what we do, I would like a little hint of density in here. I'm not going to lie. Just a little something would be kind of neat. So what if I did a little bit of parking right about there? And then I go in and say EU mixed housing there. Does that give me a building on the corner? Not really, which is unfortunate. I was kind of hoping for something. That gives us a pretty big building right there. That's maybe a bit too big. What if I bring you down? A little something here might not be so bad. I might be able to live with that. Or we could do a teeny tiny little something here, little tiny building there, and then we do the parking lot right here. That might also be the way to go. I'm also wondering, can I turn off all of my snapping except for angles and grids here and do this? I totally can. That totally works. And then it gives us a couple of small buildings here that I'm not really looking for. So let me clear you out, get rid of you, and do something like this. Yeah, I think that'll work. They might still be slightly larger buildings, but I'm kind of curious to see what it looks like. It'll give us like a little shopping corner thing here, and I'm okay with that. Maybe a little bit of like EU commercial in this spot. That's way too big. That is not what I'm looking for. Let's go a little bit smaller on that. That's honestly probably a bit too big as well. I think that'll do. Just a little bit of low density EU commercial, and then we'll go in here with some EU medium density row houses. We'll do this. So there's a little bit of a gap between those and whatever's going on in this corner. And then with all of these buildings in here, what I'd like to do is use move it to adjust this one and bring it back a little bit so it's kind of in line with the building next to it, because I just think that's the right call. I think having those guys kind of lined up like that is a little bit better. I might grab both and just bring them forward so I can get the, oh no, the surface down there doesn't seem to want to snap. Okay. Let's bring both of them back then until it complains, which seems to be roughly there. And I'm okay with that. A little bit of space between these guys and the road seems good. I can obviously extend those surfaces and everything will be fine. When it comes to this commercial building, let me move you over this way a little bit. We'll kind of put a little bit more space between you. Maybe a little bit more space between you and the road as well would be a bit of an idea. It gives us this big old paved area in front that I don't love, but I don't think it's the end of the world if we have that either. And then this space back here, I really don't know what it's going to be. These are mixed use, so maybe just a nice little bit of green space since people will be living in these buildings. But I'm okay with that. I think that's kind of the layout we'll go for. And then for these guys, let me have this path just go alongside the buildings, and it needs to be a nice little straight section of path that goes to there and the entire way down to there, because I do want people to be able to walk from here into whatever this park space is going to be. And maybe the same thing for here. maybe we just kind of go like that and kind of double it up a little bit so you can kind of walk around and that should be all right. Do I want to do the same thing here is the question. Does that work? Not really. Maybe we don't do that. They can walk across and everything should be all right. But that seems decent. I think I can work with that. So let me go in and lock these buildings levels because I don't really want them to be, I don't want them going too crazy with upgrades and things like that. And I want the roof on this building to be more of a sort of dark, slightly desaturated brown color. I want the building itself to be a desaturated kind of sandstony color. And then if I copy this and paste it there, I think that's kind of the style we want to go for. So we'll copy that. We'll put it onto the building next door. And that sort of ties them together, again, kind of into the same development that's going on down there. And then these guys, I would be lying if I said there wasn't a distinct temptation to do that, basically, and have them all be the same sort of sandstone color. Again, kind of same development essentially across the board. That might be a little bit much, though. That might be... yeah, I think we'll reset it for now. We'll leave it be. We'll let them upgrade, and then whatever the upgraded buildings are, maybe we change the color on those, but that might just be a little bit extra for now. But anyway, speaking of extra, let me do a little bit of work on some surfaces here, because apparently I just can't help myself. So we'll bring this right down. We turn on all my my snapping options so this behaves nicely. So that comes down to the road, that goes out to there, and then I want it to sort of snap into these corners as well, so I can bring it back alongside this this parking lot, because I think that's going to be a pretty good shout to make this thing all sort of look like one little unit that we've got going on here. So that kind of just, you know, wraps around. It seems all right. Okay, so with all of these buildings in place and with a little bit of basic detailing done around the higher density buildings on this end of things, I want to take a look at this empty space that we have right here, because I figure we can finally start playing around with something like the hedge park that we have right here, and that's going to let us just fill this space in really nicely. It just gives us a center to all of this, and I really enjoy it. I'm also wondering, I can get about that far away from the road before it's going to start complaining. I think I can work with that. It's not ideal. Maybe we spin it around and kind of put it on this road up here. That might be a slightly better spot for it. I don't really know if it is, although I could do that. I could have it line up with those two crosswalks, and I think that makes sense. I think that's exactly what we do, is we have it line up with those crosswalks and we kind of go back as far as we possibly can until it starts complaining, which is right about there. That's perfect. Oh, that's perfect. I'm really pleased with that. Okay, so what we'll do at this stage is we'll sorry, just had a moment there, got really excited about this. We'll go in, we'll just bring this sort of over. We'll turn on guidelines and go to there and bring this down. I need this to be at ground level, not elevating, not doing anything weird, and that just connects in there perfectly. This guy is going to be sort of a similar story. I kind of want it to curve around like this, and I kind of want it to do that same thing again. I want it to come down, go to there, and maybe, just maybe, yeah, that's what we're looking for. That connects through so perfectly. And then I can detail around it. This whole park is largely it's gonna be a lot of trees. I'm gonna tell you right now. Look, it's me. We've had this conversation. We've talked about this. This especially is gonna have a lot of trees. I would say sorry, but we both know deep down, I'm not remotely sorry for what I'm about to do. Like, realistically, if you're still watching this channel at this stage, if you're still watching this series, you kind of know what you've signed up for, I think. You know, I think it's kind of gotten to that point in this little like back and forth that we have going on here. I think we both know that I can sit here and say I'm not going to cover this in trees. And I can sit here at I could sit at the start of an episode and say I'm not going to put a bunch of trees in here, but we both know deep down that is a filthy stinking lie, and that I'm probably not going to apologize for it whatsoever. So yeah, it's fine. All right. It's totally fine. It's going to look good. That's the important thing. It's going to look great. I think bringing those little bits of path out there is really, I love this actually. I think that's such a cool little addition already without any extra detailing around it. It's immediately just helped bring this area together. I will say my biggest anxiety right now still very much lies with the fact that these guys are going to be an absolute nightmare to place. They really, really are, because this terrain is not behaving all that well, and that has me really, really worried. There is the option to elevate it. I could do that. I absolutely could do that. I don't know that I'm necessarily going to do that, because I don't know how that's necessarily going to work. But I mean, looking at it, it seems like it's actually going to be possibly the better option. Oh, that's going to be such a pain. This is going to be, oh, it's going to be such a pain to have to elevate these bushes, but I think it's going to be worth it. At least I hope it's going to be worth it. I think what I might do, just to avoid that topic for a second, is I'm going to go around all of this, and I'm going to outline the area with bushes first. I was considering fences, but I think fences will be a little bit too sort of enclosed. So I think these little bushes are going to be the right shout. Just 2 meters apart. Maybe a different one. Maybe this one. Just to change it up. Maybe this one with a bit of color, and they could be like 4 meters apart. I don't know. I'm kind of torn on what bushes we go for here. These ones are quite nice, but I think these ones are the best shout. So you know what? Let's just get this over with. It's going to take long enough as it is to get some landscaping in here. We might as well put a bit of a dent in it, and we might as well just figure this out. I really probably should spend some time just doing a little bit of research into just different ways to do landscaping in sort of city parks. Because in all my years of playing City Skylines, I've done so little research, and I feel like in a way that's fine, right? It's a video game. I don't feel like I should be researching all that much to play. It's I don't want to say it's odd, because I know people that do spend a lot of time researching things because they're trying to recreate this city or that city, or they're basing their builds on realistic sort of urban design principles and stuff like that. So it's not that I have a problem with researching. It's just that I kind of wing it. That's kind of always been my thing. Occasionally I'll look at a map and be like, oh, that's cool. And I've done that a few times with this build already. I've talked about looking at the area around the Willamette River and being like, oh, that's a really cool way of building a high school, or that's a really cool way of doing this other thing. But other than that, I never really look at actual sort of urban design principles. I don't think I ever really have. I understand the ideas of like arterial roads and things like that. And, you know, I understand roughly how to apply them, but man, sometimes I feel so out of place. I don't know how many of you are aware, but there was an event in Finland recently enough, the City Skylines Creator Connect, where a bunch of mod creators and asset creators and content creators, just content creators in general, we'll use that term, in this case applying to modders and designers and YouTubers and streamers, etc., etc. We were all invited to Finland to talk about City Skylines 2 with, you know, Colossal Order, the developers, and Paradox, the publisher, and it was a really good time, and I can't really talk too much about some of the things we talked about, but what I will say and what I can say is that I had the not even the weirdest, like I understand where it came from. I had imposter syndrome. I was looking around a room, and I won't name names because I don't want to be weird. But I was looking around this room and I was like, man, there's that person who made that one mod that I've been using for the last 5-6 years. There's that person that made that one video that built this really amazing thing and that just changed how we think about designing stuff in city skylines. There's that person that just did this or did that. Like, I'm looking around at all these people and hearing all these voices, because usually you're recognizing them by voice. Not a lot of cities creators are, you know, using face cam for absolutely everything. And that's, funnily enough, kind of how people eventually recognized me, which was surreal in itself, having people come up and be like, oh, I know who you are, which was amazing. Like, it was such a fun time. But there was a lot of that going on, because they would look at you and it would kind of be this like, hey, how's it going, you? And they're trying to get you to be like, you know, talk or whatever to hear your voice. And for me, it was the voice. Every time, every single person was like, oh, I saw you and I wasn't like 100% sure who you were. And then you spoke and I was like, ah, yeah, no, I know who that is. And yeah, I just had the weirdest bit of imposter syndrome with that event. It was such a fun time. I've talked about it in a dedicated video already, so I don't want to go into it too much, but it was such a good time, and I really hope we all get to do it again. I just had some serious imposter syndrome. Like I said, I'm looking around this room and I'm like, there's that person and there's that other person, and oh, that person built that thing and that person built that thing, and I'm just sitting in a corner like, I built a tiered city in 2016 and it went viral and had the most city skylines views on YouTube for a while. Like, that's my claim to fame, is a thing I built almost 10 years ago. In all seriousness though, I think what I really enjoyed about that whole event was just getting to meet all these other creators, because this job, and this will be a little bit of a, I don't want to get too heavy in the middle of a cities video and make things weird, but this job, as much of a wonderful thing as it is, and I never want to take it for granted. I don't want to sit here and be like, it's so hard and I have such a hard, you know, I am very lucky to get to do what I do, and I'm very grateful to be able to do this. But it is quite isolating, you know? It's not a kind of job where you're going out and socializing with people, not in this particular genre. I mean, we do have collaborations here and there, and there's a lot of cool collaborations that go on, and I'd love to look at those and be a part of those when I get an opportunity, but it's a very isolating job. You don't often get to go out and hang out with people. You're kind of usually stuck in an office, and you're usually just talking into a microphone into the void and hoping that people are going to tune in. And a lot of us are very fortunate and grateful that people do. But an opportunity to go out and actually spend time with these creators and get to know them that just a little bit better, you know, it's so rare that it happens, especially after the pandemic. Events really dried up a little bit. I think a lot of companies realize, like, hey, we can just sort of give YouTubers money to sit in their office and not bring them out to the events. So it is a little bit rare that we get to go to these things these days, but an opportunity to do that and spend time with these creators who, even if it's a little bit intimidating sometimes, you know, like I said, you're looking around a room and there's, you know, it's a room of a combined, you know, 2.5, 3, 4, 5 million subscribers, and how many countless hundreds of millions of YouTube views, and how many, maybe, you know, tens upon tens of thousands of hours spent in city skylines. It's a lot. It's really cool, and it's such a nice break from what is kind of an isolating career sometimes, and that can weigh really heavy. I think that's, at least for me, you know, I've never shied away from talking about any of like my own personal little struggles and stuff like that. This isn't going to be diving into that, don't worry. But I think for me, it was just such a refreshing sort of getaway to be like, oh yeah, no, we all really like this. And we're all a bunch of people that have this like shared interest that we love and adore. And this is a really cool thing that we're getting to do right now. And I like to think that we all sort of left that event with that same vibe of like, yeah, we 100% need to do this again as soon as is reasonable, because it was so much fun. And in my video where I talked about the event, which I'll try to remember to link in the video description. I say that knowing I probably won't, I'm going to be honest. In my video where I talked about this event, I kind of mentioned that idea of doing it again. I would love to see a point where it becomes part of something like PDXCon, where, you know, the broader Cities Skylines community can kind of get invited and be like, hey, come on in, let's have everybody come and hang out, and we'll do this event where, you know, creators are meeting the community and modders and developers and all that kind of stuff. It'd be really intimidating, I think. I'd be really nervous. I've been to a handful of events over the years where I've been there sort of as ConflictNerd, and it's so cool and it's so flattering and it's amazing, but it is also really, it's really not scary. Scary isn't the word. Intimidating might be the right choice of word for it, because you have complete strangers come up to you and be like, I know who you are. And you're kind of stood there like, ah, that's really cool. Thank you so much. I don't know what to say or do right now. Cause I don't, it's such an odd thing. Like I really don't. Like I don't know how to thank people for, and this is getting a little bit into like how the sausage is made. We're talking a little bit more meta about YouTube at this point, but I really don't. Like you know, at the end of a video, it's like, thank you so much for watching. And it's like, it is an outro. It is just an outro, but it is also like a true thing. Like people taking time out of their day to watch something that I'm making or doing or whatever. It's a big deal. Like I've always said over the years, time is like a currency, except it's a currency that you can never get refunded. You only ever have so much of it. You can never get it back. And that's terrifying. So suddenly everyone watching this video is going to be like, you know what? You're right. Why am I watching this? But oh man, I don't know what this whole part might get cut out of the video. I don't know. I'm still pre-recording for my trip. I really shouldn't be spending this long rambling, but whatever. We're into it now. I might as well continue. Yeah, it's just, it's surreal. It really is. It's so surreal that people watch what I do and what other creators do. And I think we're all really appreciative of it. I just don't think any of us really know how to really articulate that appreciation. Kind of in the same way that whenever someone, I've done this has been my job for something like 8 years, and I've been doing YouTube in one way, shape, or form for probably, well, my entire adult life, and probably at least half of my life. I think I started dabbling in it when I was like 15, and I'm 31 in like a month, less than a month. So it's to this day, I don't know how to describe it. You know, I get in a taxi, I get in an Uber, and they're like, so what do you do for a living? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know. Because you sit there and you're like, I make videos for the internet, and their mind only goes to one place. And then they look in the rearview mirror, look at me sitting back there and like, really? You? So it's really difficult to explain what this job is. I still struggle to do that. Maybe one day, maybe by the time I'm 40, there's another, oh God, it's 9 years. That's just set in. You know what? Let me finish a little bit of this detailing, and then we'll zoom out and take a look at what I've done so far. Oh, and I've also just noticed some of these buildings have leveled up, and I really like them, actually. I wasn't too sure I was gonna, but I think it actually looks better than the normal little building in here. That's really, really cool. Looks like the same thing's going on with the row houses too. They're taking up a whole lot more of the space that they have, which is pretty cool. I don't know that I'm gonna go with a sandstone thing for these, but I don't dislike this. And I'm also really liking the trees in here. We got a little dog park in that space connected to the road. We just got some trees down here to fill in this space. I think this area is gonna look really, really cool. Oh, and apparently we're also a small city, which is amazing. We should probably have a look at progression. That gives us high density offices as well, which I'm not all that interested in right now, but you know what? I'll take it. I've also just noticed how cool the footprint is around these buildings. If we can get all of these to upgrade to this style of building, I think this area is going to look amazing. I really do. Like, it's already looking pretty cool and it's nowhere near done, but I think it's going to look really cool. I'm really, really excited to see this all come together. Although in saying that, I don't know what's going to go in these spaces. I haven't really figured that out yet. Although these little buildings here, oh, they're little 2x3s. That's unfortunate. We could get a little one in here and we could get a little one in there, but I think it would look silly. I just need to figure out what's going to go in there. And it might just end up being a case of, in fact, I think that's exactly what we do. We take out these paths. I think we add a little path to the side of this guy. And I think we just bring a little path down through the middle there. I think that's going to be the easiest way to tie this all together. So we'll take out those middle poplar trees. We can maybe take out you, and we'll take out you as well. We're going to go in here and just throw those poplar trees back in. And you might have noticed, I don't think I mentioned it yet, but I'm very deliberately sticking with more European style foliage for the project at the moment, because I think it's going to just help sort of differentiate the entire thing from the rest of the city, which is very deliberate. Like, I'm being very intentional with doing that because I think it's going to make things that little bit more interesting. So let's do just a little nub right there for that bit of path, and a little nub right there. We'll do the same thing here and the same thing here, so I can just get myself a nice little curve that's going to go around there. I don't think it's going to be perfect. I don't think it's going to look exactly as cool as I'm hoping for, but I think that right there is honestly okay. I think I can work with that. And then same thing here as well. In fact, I'm kind of wondering, let me turn off my guidelines. Let me get my, let me build a little nub in there. Let me not phrase that the way I was about to, and just connect this all together like so. And I think that's all right. It's not, again, it's not perfect, but I'm okay with that. It really doesn't need to be, I don't think. And then you're going to go to about there. They're not exact by any means. They're absolutely not exact, but I think that's all right. I think we can make that work. And then I'm looking at this and thinking maybe these poplar trees on the inside can be swapped out. I say swapped out, I mean moved, which is totally realistic, but we'll take those out. We'll go back into our foliage. We'll get our poplar trees, and then maybe they just go in the corners. And you know, I think we might be done with this. Now, there are still a bunch of buildings that I would love to see upgrade, but I'm kind of content with where we've got to. And you can probably see we have buses coming down here as well. It's just an extension of the blue line. It's nothing specific for this area, but I'm really, really pleased with how this has turned out. Obviously, there's just a lot of details in here that aren't necessarily functional. So we have little areas like this where there's a bunch of trees and it kind of looks like a park, but it isn't. But there's other spaces where we have parks that actually are functional, and I'm hoping that's going to help this area level up that little bit quicker. I also decided to repaint our little commercial building to match the colors on the sign, which I'm realizing may or may not have gotten rid of some of the surfaces that I put down here, so I might have to redo that. In fact, this is probably the perfect time to do exactly that, because the surface that I had in here before wasn't one that I really loved anyway. So we'll go in here and just put down the regular grass surface instead of the manicured grass surface, because I think the regular one is just going to fit this space that little bit better. So it's going to come over to here. It is going to go to right about there. And then I want it to just come down, go across, and it's going to run the entire way along this little section of path. I want it to come to this corner. I want it to go down through here and up around this space in a way that's hopefully going to make sense. So over to about there, and this is just going to loop all the way around this little building and give us something like that. And I think it looks pretty solid. I like that a lot. I'll probably put some trees across here to separate the parking lot from that as well. But first, I would like to just straighten up this corner a little bit. I've also decided to put some trees back in here for now because we can get around to this little park thing at some point. I think today has been way more detail oriented than I kind of intended for it to be. And I'm not, as we discussed earlier, I'm not going to apologize for it. We all know what we've signed up for here. But I am so pleased with how this space has turned out. I absolutely adore it. It's really, it's so cool. It's such a cool looking little space that I'm hoping is going to look a little better once it's got something up on this side of it. I'll probably kind of continue a little bit of this kind of grid that we have going on into this area so that this stands out even more. But just zooming out and looking at it, like, it's really, really cool. It's done exactly what I wanted. And this is also based on something that I don't remember what town it's a part of. It's not exactly like this, but in one of the towns on the Willamette River, there is like a little modern apartment development right down on the river. And this is kind of where that idea came from, was to build sort of a modern little apartment development. It doesn't have canals. It doesn't quite go this far with it, but I figured if I'm going to do this, I might as well do it properly. And I feel like I've done it properly. So I think with all of that said and done, and the fact that we're approaching $2 million, and the fact that I got my little service thing out here, and I got my little apartment development out here, I think we can go ahead and leave it there for today. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. It has been an absolute pleasure as always. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.